But today, we got two legendary coaches with us from St. Paul, two Saint Agnes grads, championship at Saint Agnes as well. Without further ado, they really don't need no introduction, but we have Coach Marlon McCoy, and we also have Coach Malik Davis. Hey, we'll take it down. All right, so we're going to start asking them some questions right now. Let's get it started. Why did you even decide to start coaching? You know what I'm saying? What got you guys into it? And I'll let Coach McCoy go with that first.
Why did I start coaching?
Yeah.
I started out as a parent, to be honest, and another legend, John Robinson, was coaching my son, my oldest son, little Marlon, and he had a good group of kids. And John, we all know he has a busy schedule. He's always been like that. So it started out as me being a parent, and he would be late a lot to practices. So instead of the kids playing around and stuff, literally I just started warming the kids up, trying to make it easier for him when he came in the door, because he would be running late. And it just ended up turning into me warming them up and getting them started. And then it would be some days where, him working multiple jobs, he would just call and flat out be like, I can't make it today, to the rec. And I would just run the practices, and I was actually coaching at Central with the boys at the time. So I just, my son playing, and I knew the kids, I was familiar with the group. So I just started out coaching basically when my son started playing, like second, third grade. And I ended up keeping that group actually, from all the way up to like ninth grade. And it didn't even start out like that. It just started out as me helping out and just being a parent, and then you know how that goes. You just end up getting pushed into the fire.
Coach Malik, how'd you get it started?
Man, Coach Marlon got me started.
Okay.
I came back from college, and there used to be a place called Old Mexico, and we used to kind of pregame there before we would go downtown Minneapolis. And I ran into him there, and we was just kind of talking about basketball, and just got to talking, and I was telling him how much I missed the game and just being around it. And he was like, you ever thought about coaching? I was like, man, I ain't ever coached before. He was like, man, you a point guard, man. Like, it ain't that complicated, man. You're just going to teach him the game. And I was like, you know what, I actually wouldn't mind that. I consider it, yeah, absolutely. Like, what are you talking about? He was like, man, Central's hiring for a freshman coach. Mm-hmm. And I was like, say less. So I went up there and I applied, and probably some of the best times of my life coaching, man, up there at Central freshman year. That's how I got into it.
Okay. And then you hear right there in the stories, right? They get started for the community pretty much, you know what I'm saying? Right in the community. Both of their jobs as coaches come from one, helping at St. Paul Central, and then also helping kids at rec centers in St. Paul. Like, I think that's missing. I'll say that from coaches. I'll get y'all a quick perspective on that. What do y'all say about that? I think there's nothing, I don't really have anything against volunteer coaching, but when you volunteer, some coaches is like, they volunteer because they're doing it, like you just said, I'm coaching for my kid. Mm-hmm. Now, you're going to get some volunteers just like, I'm just really here for my kid.
I don't know what's going on.
Don't know what's going on. I don't even know what basketball is.
Right.
And it's real. And then you have some coaches that really put that time in, and you already named one. You got John Robinson, and then you have yourself that really was coaching in the inner city, Brian Pearson, just real coaches that were actually putting in time. What do y'all think about that? Is that missing in the St. Paul city for the Recs, you think? Like, how about that volunteer coach? Like, real coaches need to go back to that, helping the youth. What do you think about that, Coach McCoy?
It's definitely missing, because just reiterating what you just said, I can remember, like, for 10U, Brian had a team, who you just named. Me and John had a team. Kylan had a team. Kylan Payne had a team. Reese at MLK had a team. So, like you said, it was so competitive at 10U. And you didn't have to just play for one rec. Like, if you was an East Side kid, you knew where you could go over there and fit in, and the games used to just be so crazy.
And that's Rex you're talking about?
For rec ball, like
Right.
10U, like it was the talent. It was so much talent, but you not only did you have talent, you had so many different community guys coaching all over. You know, it was just like it wasn't just one rec. It was like 5 to 6 good coaches in the city at that time. So you knew every Saturday you had a game. Like it wasn't, you know, okay, I got a game this week, then the next 4 weeks is going to be a blowout. Right. Like every week it was a game, and that's what it has to get back to.
Right. And Coach Malik,
did y'all get paid?
No, not at all. Not until actually I ended up working at Shepherd, but that was after the fact, you know. But when I first started out, I was just volunteering.
Right.
and then Coach Malik, I'll ask you. I don't know how much you've coached in the city, but I know you're trying to get back, especially helping the inner city kids and back at Jim Lee and stuff like that. So what do you think about coaches coming back and putting their time in with the youth like that?
I think it's the life of the city. Because if it don't happen, it's going to die. The only time I coached in the city was an AAU program that my little nephew was on. You know, and I'm just not a fan of this new model of AAU. I feel like it's a money grab. Like, all right, LD, appreciate that $850 for your son. We're going to practice 1 day a week, and we're going to go play a super saver. You know, $60 for your mom and dad to get in for the day, right? And so my nephew went to try out for these couple of teams. He didn't make a team. He was like, man, like, can you coach us? I was like, man, y'all don't even got a team. I was like, you bring me back 7 more kids, and we'll get a team. And we started a team. And we essentially played in Brian Sanford's tournaments. And at an early age, that's all kids need to do is just play in games. But more importantly, the coach's point, you got to have good coaches there, not people that are just there for filling in time, rolling out the ball for an hour, letting the kids kind of play around, like having some discipline, some structure, some accountability, and just for, you know, the frustrating piece about it right now is I feel like it's about money. Yeah. When I came up playing basketball, nobody that coached me down at the King Center or on any of the AAU programs that I played for got paid. When I went down to the King Center and Brian put me through some workouts, he didn't charge me to put me through workouts. Now, oh, you got a kid, oh, well, hey, had him come to my workouts, I'll charge him to do a workout. That ain't what we came up on. And I don't think that's what's going to keep us successful. I think what made us successful coming up is we played competitive basketball in the recs. Every game was competitive. But outside of those games, they was also playing at the recs outside of the game. So basketball games at the rec was extremely competitive. Yeah. You messed around and lost, you may be out. Well, it depends on who you were. Mm-hmm. But most people came with a group of people, so if their friends didn't get picked up, then they wouldn't play the next game, even if they lost. So winning meant a lot more than it does nowadays. Now it's like, oh, we lost, whatever. But I think getting back to that competitive piece where coaches are coming back, coaching for the right reasons, instilling discipline and accountability. Because the other thing about AAU is like, oh, Marlon, like, hey, you want to come play with me this weekend? Like, I got a bag for you. I get you a jersey, get you some shoes.
You got kids playing on 3 different teams.
Yeah.
That trend started to go to inflate his ego. So now his accountability is a lot different. Coach getting on me too much. I'm going to go play with Coach Ladarian because he already been trying to get me over there.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty.
Yeah. That hurts. All right. So, yeah, man, I appreciate y'all's perspectives on that because, you know, I think that's something that, you know, needs to be brought back, just like you guys said, like bringing back, putting that real time in. And I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not disrespecting those coaches that are volunteering. You know, do what you have to do. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? If you're out there trying to help your kid or, you know, just trying to, you know, if there's no other coaches that step up, you know, you got to do what you got to do. Right. So I'm not blaming those that just, you know, they're thrown into that fire. It is what it is. So there's been a lot of changes to the game of basketball. It sounds like we've talked about it already a little bit slightly. But what are some of the biggest notices that you've seen evaluating the game, you know, good or bad, or let's go with one of the biggest things that you've seen as far as the evaluation or evolution of the game?
You mean as a whole, or like at what level?
So just like any level, like, what's something that you've seen in the game of basketball, like that's trended either in a good way or a bad way?
The speed.
The speed, yeah.
Just from coaching AAU and just high school basketball, the speed has changed. I mean, if you can't guard, you're going to stick out because there's no more true post. There's no more walk the ball up the floor. And you're in an action every play down. So if you can't defend, you really stick out. That's what's changed the most to me, which is a good thing because it speeds the pace of the game up and it's good, exciting basketball. The only thing that on the flip side of that bothers me is nobody knows how to read screens or run a set no more. It's just ISO basketball. So what happens is, just from my perspective, is I see a lot of talented, athletic kids that are really, really good, but then you get them in practice and they can't even read a screen. They don't know what on-ball defense is, off-ball defense.
No fundamental.
They don't know the terminology. They don't know what a fade screen is, what a pin-down screen is. They're looking at me like I'm crazy. Like,
speaking another language.
I don't know what that is. So you have to really break that down, even to a talented kid, like a kid that could probably be the best on the team. But it's a lot of stuff that they're missing as far as fundamentally. So I would say I like the speed of the game, and the pace is different. I like that it moves faster, but on the flip side, these kids ain't learning as much.
So the lack of the fundamentals.
Yes, yes, by far.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Coach Malik?
I like the shot clock.
Okay, yes.
I like that they put the shot clock in high school. Feels like it speeds the game up. It doesn't let a team that's not as talented be as competitive because they can't, let the ball die and try and wear you down on just passing the ball for nothing. And it forces you, to Coach's point, be a little bit more strategic in making those screens and reading and being faster in your decision making. So ultimately, I think it just helps with skill development with the shot clock, and it doesn't allow for teams to stall out when they get like a small lead. So I was happy to see the shot clock get brought into high school.
Me too. I think that and the restricted line making it to Minnesota for sure, and just overall nationally for the game.
So what's the restricted line?
The
charge,
for the block or charge, you got to have your feet outside the restricted line. So I like that changing for coming up in Minnesota for sure. So I want to pick you guys' brain a little bit. So, of course, coaching in the city, you're going to coach hundreds of players, different talent levels. Excuse me. Okay, I held it. Different talent levels, different backgrounds, you're going to get that multicultural feeling coaching in the city. When dealing with a player that's challenging, yet he has every intangible, all the talent, all the skill to make it somewhere, but he just has other outside influences hindering him, man. Have you guys ever coached a player like that? And then if you have coached a player like that, like, what is it like trying to reel that player in, having to stay on them, having to mentor them constantly, almost probably be like a father figure to that player, or another big brother, depending on, the age or, mentality of that kid. And knowing like this kid has the potential, or having to make that decision like, I can't help this kid anymore, unfortunately. Have you ever had that, Coach Marlon?
I've had that a few times. It's a hindsight. It's a 50-50 too, because you don't want to see, especially in your community, when you see that kids had an opportunity to make it out and make life better for themselves. But when you see that they stop hearing you, it's like what more can I do for you? And like my biggest thing is like the disrespect. I got patience. I've been working with kids and youth forever, but when you start getting to the point where you're disrespecting me, and I feel like other people are starting to see that you're disrespecting me, and you're kind of taking away from my personality and what I've earned as a coach and built as a coach, that's probably the only time where I could say where I'm like, I'm done. Like, you're going to have to bump your head and figure it out yourself, because I'm never going to just give up on the kid right away. You got, they're kids, they're learning. But when you start disrespecting somebody that really looks out for you and takes money and time out their pocket and they, because you're away from your family a lot.
Yeah, your own kids.
Your own kids. So it's like, when you start disrespecting me and I'm taking the time to sit here and coach you, and I got kids, especially when you got kids at home, that's a no-brainer for me. Like, it's like I can't do it no more. That and grades. If I see you ain't even on pace to, like, I think AAU should I'm going to keep it 100. AAU, if you're not on pace to graduate, you shouldn't be playing AAU basketball. You're ineligible during the winter for high school ball, and then you get rewarded and go to Vegas. I'll see you in Vegas and in Philadelphia. Even if they want to offer you, who's going to recruit you? They can't even offer you, because you don't even have the grade. I mean, you can try to figure it out and get on pace, JUCO, but that's not you owning up to your part. So it's almost like they ain't owning up to their part. That's when I kind of see and be like, there's nothing I can do with you no more.
Because only a small percentage will really actually make that click to make that switch, finish JUCO, do what they have to do, get on pace to make it. Because a lot of them are going to go to JUCO right away first semester when they're out of there.
Right.
Coach Malik, what about you?
I think we all have it in every coaching environment. I don't care at what age level you're going. I think the biggest thing is just setting a culture and expectation. And most, for us in high school, anyway, I was blessed to have high school. It wasn't like I just walked in with kids, so you had to try out. And I made it very clear the first day of tryouts, what kind of team this was going to be, what kind of expectations I had. And I would usually find, the best players on the team, and I would go at their head. And I would challenge them, and as soon as they got out of line, I'd hold them accountable. And so everybody else downstream knew that they could be held accountable too. I remember I put you out of practice.
Yeah, for sure.
and it wasn't in a mean spirited situation, but it was a day that, to coach's point, you wasn't hearing me. I couldn't reach you, and I was today was over for you. You can come back tomorrow, and sometimes people just need that space to kind of cool off.
Yeah.
And be like, that I was tripping. Or you could have came back in there, and instead of apologizing, you could have went at my head and be like, oh, coach, but you didn't do that. And I think that's the challenge as coaches. You risk that punishment because I don't know how you're going to respond. And coaches that are only concerned with winning aren't going to hold those kids accountable, because if he doesn't respond right, now to coach's point, I'm in an awkward position because now I'm letting LD cuss me out. And the team just saw it, and then you start next game, I lost control of this whole team.
Yeah.
And we've had a big thing at Central, man. No one player is bigger than the program.
For sure.
So the expectation for one is the expectation for all. And granted, there's a sliding scale, but for the most part, everything should be everything. If I ask you to do something, the same thing I'm going to ask Coach Marlon to do. I think the other side of it is just the whole parent involvement. Like, I remember telling my dad one time when I was at Saint Agnes, they brought me up to play varsity, and I wasn't getting the minutes I wanted. And I was like, man, Dad, they ain't giving me the minutes I want, man. They letting this point guard start, and da-da-da-da. He just let me kind of rant. And he asked me, he said, are you beating him in drills? I was like, what? He was like, are you beating him in drills? I was like, some of them, I think. He was like, well, until you beat him in every drill, you show the coach that you can play and compete with him, don't talk to me about nothing. You got to earn your minutes. What we see nowadays, or what I saw before I left Central, you don't play. Hey, Coach Davis, why ain't LD getting no minutes? Like, what? Have you asked him, or why are you worrying about his minutes? Like, he's late to practice. He don't know the offensive set. He definitely don't know the defensive sets. And so instead of the parents advocating with us to the kid to make the kid better, the parents are at the coaches on why we're not doing more for the kid. And I think the parents are actually the biggest deterrent when we talk about dealing with kids that are kind of out of control, and not supporting the coaches. And obviously it depends on the coach. But I think the parents play a huge role in either stroking the kids' ego and allowing them to go down the road and not being held accountable, or supporting the coach and ultimately benefiting their kid by holding them accountable.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked about that so many times. I couldn't further agree. All right, so let's talk about it though, and it's all honesty.
All right, man, have a good one.
Go ahead, I'll wait for you. So resources in St. Paul for our athletes. I'm one that believes we could be more competitive as a community or a city if some of the schools were to combine. However, there are a lot of schools that got pride. A lot of history. You can't take that away from these schools. I'm certainly not trying to do that, but like I said, I go to a lot of Raptors, or I go to a lot of these gyms, and it's no disrespect, but it's like the last conference tournament or conference championship was 1969 or 1971. And the last state appearance was 1962 or something like that. It's like, not that bad. So I need to stop that. But,
for what schools?
Just a lot of the city schools,
okay.
St. Paul's city schools.
Because it ain't Central.
No. But a lot of the city schools, that's what I'm saying. Some schools, I get it, probably don't need to, but there are other schools because I think it's benefited. Look at Humboldt and Harding for football. They combined. That benefited them. I'm certainly not trying to come at any of the kids, but it's just like when it comes to sports, at some level, we got to bring that competitiveness back. I felt like participation started coming in, kind of when I got older. Because when I was younger, if you wasn't good, you wasn't playing. That was just really that simple. Your parent couldn't do nothing about it. You can get your jersey back really quickly and go somewhere else. Y'all pretty sure y'all had coaches like that too.
Because it was numbers.
Yeah, I got kids already. We playing. It's a competitive. I can't hold these kids back to try to play your kid.
Right.
And then for the most part, a lot of kids were able to get better. The ones that really wanted it would work harder, get better, end up getting some minutes. Yeah. The ones that didn't, they fall off. But what do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about, resources of combining schools, or what other things could be done for resources for these city schools?
Well,
Let's go with Coach. Go ahead, Coach. I'm sorry.
I think it's in the print right now. Like, it's with social media and the way sports is going right now with high school, you kind of almost have to if you want to stay afloat and stay relevant. The days are just, outside of Central and maybe Highland, they're going to continue to get numbers, but I think it's almost to a point where you have to start combining the schools, Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Yeah.
And then I think the solution to that, especially football-wise, well, basketball and football, I think they need to combine it. They need to combine as a conference. Yeah. It doesn't need to be a Minneapolis conference and a St. Paul conference.
Twin Cities conference.
I think it just needs to be a Twin City conference.
They be reading my mind.
Because now that travel's not a lot. You look at the other conferences, a lot of teams is driving 45, 50 minutes to play a conference opponent.
Oh, my God.
So driving to Washburn or Southwest on a Friday night or a Tuesday night is not a big deal. Or South's right over one street, over late. So I just think they need to come to a head where the athletic directors need to come together and they need to just make it a Twin City conference.
Man,
It'll take away from the Twin City game, but I mean, let's be real. Do you want quality? I think you combine all the schools and say we have a city conference.
What do you think, Coach Malik?
I'm on the other side of the coin.
Okay.
Because I grew up watching Coach play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Our high school had 300 and something people in it. You know, they won the state championship, but there was only two categories. Yeah. I mean, they ain't made too many more high schools. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he played with the cats he grew up with. Yeah. Harding made it to state. Yeah. Harding High School made it to the state tournament.
Yes, they did.
You know what I mean? And so when I get football, because football is based on numbers. You can't have, 23 kids on a varsity team. You know, you got to put 11 on both sides of the ball. You got to have positions. Like I get football, but I don't like. I like the idea of combining the conferences, making it a Twin Cities conference. Okay. I don't like the idea on combining teams just because I think it waters it down. And but I came from a different era. We didn't come from an era of transferring schools to play with the better player. Right. We want to go head to head. Yeah. I catch you at the holiday tournament. Yeah, I go to Saint Agnes and we're gonna play the public schools at Hamlin Holiday Classic. And we're gonna see who's gonna talk in the neighborhood, right? Or we'll catch you in sections. But I think that just goes back to our era. Like it was just a lot more competitive back then, and we were prideful on what name we wore, and we're gonna rep it. However it goes down, we're gonna leave it on the floor. Mm-hmm. What I think is missing is the you talk about resources. Yes. Coach talked about being out in the suburbs. It's night and day difference. Yes. Compared to what we have access to. Yes. If I'm in a suburban school and my kid is out of school and, hey, Dad, can we go put up some shots? Oh, yeah, son. We walk right down to the local high school. We walk into the field house and we put up shots and I rebound. Nobody says anything to me. I don't know if you remember, we were at Central getting ready to play Columbia Heights, and you had called and was like, hey, Coach, can we go put some shots up? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I got the key. Like, I know ain't nobody in there. It's playoffs. We go in there, we're shooting. Janitor comes in. I've seen the janitor. The janitor knows me. It ain't like he don't know me. Like, hey, what you guys doing in here? Like, we putting up shots. Like, oh, do you guys have a permit to be in here?
We go to school here.
Like, no, that is the permit. There's nobody else using it. I'm a coach that's been vetted for my background screen, and I have keys. Why is there an issue? And he essentially was like, well, you guys got to leave. And I told him, I said, well, you can't put me out. You're going to have the cops come get us out. And he was like, oh, my gosh, you can't talk to me. Like, man, whatever. We finished our workout. We played in the section game, but then the coach talked to me. He was like, hey, man, we can't do that. And at that moment, I was like, that's ridiculous.
It's basketball.
That's the piece that's missing as far as resources. And that's what makes Harding making it to state or anybody in the city going to state at any capacity extremely impressive. Yeah. I'm dealing with my daughter right now playing track at Highland. Track is a joke at Highland. I watched her play junior high basketball at Highland. It's a joke. The game starts at 4. The game really don't start to 5. So you got parents sitting in the gym at 4 o'clock. The game don't start to 5. The bus ain't even showed up. Then the refs out there with stripes, and they just grab somebody else out the hallway to be the other ref. They only pay for one ref. I don't think the city sees the value in having a strong sports program. Yeah. Did you go to school on a scholarship?
No.
Up at St. Cloud?
St. Cloud, yes.
You can get a college scholarship off of sports. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the city is putting the resources in believing in the students to allow that to happen. And I know it's a long-winded answer, but I think one of the solutions is using, for basketball anyways, the coaches got to tie in together. I'm going to have open gyms and workouts at my gym on this day. You got open gyms and workouts at your gym at that day. Every kid in the St. Paul City Conference is eligible to go to do these workouts. So you got 5 days. If you really about that life and you want to get some shots up and you want to work on your game, you got 5 days of access to facilities. Sorry for the long answer, but that's my answer.
No, it's beautiful. Cause I believe, like you just said, like, man, look, and that's really the only reason I said because of the numbers. The basketball, I think, you could leave that, but I think everything else they are already kind of, you got this lacrosse team is a mixture of teams. The hockey team is a mixture of teams. Some baseball teams combine, some football teams have, 2 football teams have combined. And like you said, like, I think Central only had like 25 players this year, 26 players or something like that.
For the whole program?
Football.
For football.
For football, they didn't even have a freshman team.
Right.
So for the whole program, they only had like 27 players on varsity. JV probably was combined with some of the players that did no freshman team. So like when you got numbers like that, man, it's like.
But the thing with football, man, it starts a lot sooner, man.
Yeah.
We're down there at Jimmy Lee trying to get Jimmy Lee back online. We're trying to get people to come out to kind of help support and coach the kids. It's like, man, I'm pulling teeth.
Man, look.
But if you don't get kids in it, football ain't one of them games you can just kind of jump out there. Nah. Like if you ain't kind of in it and used to getting tackled and comfortable tackling, comfortable with that contact, you get to high school and you run into Coach Marlon, who was this size as a freshman. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I'm good. I ain't about to get out on that field.
Yeah. Oh. But I just like imagine, and this is just 2 people out there. Like imagine if Lil Allen was. And some of them guys was playing alongside of who was the wide receiver and the quarterback from Johnson? I'm forgetting their name. It was Ali and Justice Moody. Yes, sir. Like imagine if that was on the same squad with some of them linemen combined. Like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not really. I know, like I said, it's prideful. But like you just said, like I told Coach C, no disrespect to guys, but you got coaches that got to coach players that really don't even care. They out there because they friends is there. Right. They could care less about you yelling at them. They like, I don't even care, coach. You know what I'm saying? And it's not really fair to those coaches that really want to coach and develop kids. So if you have a bunch of kids where it's like, okay, you cannot care, and then just, get off the team because I don't even need you for numbers now because you can go. I got numbers now. So especially for football. So
especially for football.
I'll get off that though. But that was a great answer, though.
And another thing, it's extremely possible as far as the schools, like, utilizing resources together. Because that's the biggest thing is gym space.
Yeah.
Kids having to pay for it. People not feeling comfortable with the teenage environment.
Like, when they built Jimmy Lee, they was talking about how that's supposed to be Central's field house. Like, man, they barely let us in there, boy, after school. Y'all got about an hour. Get up out of here. It's like, y'all don't even close till 9-10, but the gym already closed at 6-7. You bringing in volleyball or inside tennis or soccer. It's like, it's like, hold on now. All these gyms for that.
But to that, at Jimmy Lee, like, the young kids been messing it up.
Yeah, now. Yeah. It's
you know what I'm saying? And that makes it bad. And that goes into a whole nother conversation of my idea on this social experiment with no punishment that they're allowing people to kind of go through in the rec centers. Like back in the day down at Jimmy Lee or the King Center, you came in tripping, you can't come back. You're gone for a week.
Yeah. Right.
You can't come back for a week.
It was over.
Now they can't kick kids out. Or they'll ask you to leave for the day, then you come back tomorrow. Like, you could literally, if my Coach McCoy was there, I could cuss him out, use every cuss word I wanted, and I could show back up tomorrow.
Yep.
And that is ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
Take it on
that's
the chin.
ridiculous.
Because what environment are we setting for one Coach McCoy that's there as staff? What leverage does he think he has as discipline if he knows that I could talk to him crazy? He ain't going to want to put himself in a position to have me talk to him crazy, and who knows how that spins out. Well, actually, we saw how that spun out on the situation.
We did.
Right.
That's exactly what it was.
We got to get back to making rec centers safer for kids to come to and holding the kids that's tripping accountable and removing them, because it's for the betterment of the bigger community.
When your pops worked there, we couldn't even touch the rim.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a lights off.
Right. Y'all done.
I mean, that ain't even a cuss word or nothing. I ain't even touched the rim.
Because they ain't trying to pay for no new ones.
They knew they ain't had them.
He hit the light, and everybody knew what that meant. You ain't have to say nothing. When he hit the light, you got about 5 to 7 minutes to get your stuff in real dark.
He's gonna hit that other light in a second.
I mean, but that's just like you said, there's no accountability no more.
Yeah.
We knew, like, it's just certain stuff you just couldn't do.
You had to respect your elders.
That kept you inside the boundaries.
Yeah.
Though. You know, in certain environment, like I know I can't do this over here. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So let's get y'all thoughts. We'll wrap it up with this one. Let's get y'all thoughts on, because it sounds like, and I hear the pride. Like, I have good pride playing in St. Paul for a St. Paul City team, and I know you guys are at Saint Agnes, but that's right there. We all know where that's at. St. Paul, born and raised, is born and bred, you know. So I had good pride playing in the city. A lot of kids nowadays, though, and you can't blame every parent trying to, make a better way for their kid. These days it is what it is on some fronts, but you have a lot of kids that, ducking the grind pretty much of playing in the city, building your own name, almost like what Gilbert Arenas did with his son out in California, where, you're playing for a team that's kind of less, but you're the man. And you're putting them on the map yourself, you know what I'm saying? There's not a bunch of guys doing it, but, you're putting in that work, kind of how, like, the kids at Johnson, the kids at Central are, getting on the map, putting in that work by grinding and not teaming up with others. But, what do you guys feel like about, or what do you guys think about that, people, taking their kids out of the inner city, both St. Paul, Minneapolis, and sending them to these suburban schools? Coach Malik, let's go with you first.
I don't know all the parents and the kids that didn't come to Central.
Right.
All I know is I've heard people say that they didn't send their kids to Central.
That is a fact.
And despite that, Coach Shaw was still able to run up the record he ran with all of these supposed and actual lost kids. My challenge and my counter is, imagine if all those kids that did leave actually stayed. Imagine if all those kids and parents that did leave actually stayed and were pushed and developed and became accountable for their actions and behavior. Now, every coach ain't perfect. I know certain things about Coach Howell people didn't like. I get it. There's not one coach that I've seen or I've heard a program where everybody that comes through that program loves and admires that head coach. I know, Cretan, right? They had a kid that just transferred off Cretan's team in the middle of the season. So what happens? And that's coming from a private school to a whole nother school. So what I realized in coaching is that you ain't gonna make everybody happy. But what I also understand is parents that chase what you're talking about, like that highlight, let me be the highlight player here. I didn't see it. There was 2 kids that I saw that left that became successful in the next program they went to, which was Dylan and Jordan. When they went to Washburn, they won a championship. The other group of kids that I saw leave went to Como. It wasn't a suburban school, but it was another school. And if you ask me, I thought they lost. Most kids that I saw that left Central did not leave to a winning program. They lost stock. They may have continued to play and got better. I think like Aaron Delaney, he was one that continued to keep pushing his path forward. But I'm just a real prideful neighborhood dude, man. Like, I couldn't imagine playing at St. Thomas or Tartan. Like, my family and my neighbors could walk to my games, or I would see them at the gas station. Hey, Malik, man, good game, man. I saw you in the paper. Like that interaction, that involvement from the community, I can't get that out there. And I've also seen kids get sent out there to be rebounders and pick setters. They're not the dominant person in these programs, and that's what most of these people don't understand. You're going to send your kid to a farm system. They've been playing together since they was, I'll give them 10. It's probably like 8, but I'll say 10. They've been playing together since they've been 10 years old. Now they're juniors, and you think your son or your daughter is going to go into their system and now become the person, there's very few people that will. And I'm, as a coach, every coach plays to win. So if you're just that dominant and that good, Royce White, yeah, whatever, they'll figure it out. But most people and most kids ain't that. They're average at best. And so to take them now into another program, like, okay, yeah, Mark, you'll play, but just don't shoot too much. And people leave the city to go to these suburban programs and play in shells. But I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, we getting it. Okay, we love this. Go ahead, Coach McCoy. That's why we wanted it. We trying to get the coach's perspective, and it's all real. Like you just said, like you gotta have that pride. I think that was taken out with participation as well. But I'm gonna get off the participation trophies. Go ahead, Coach McCoy.
I think the biggest thing that sticks out for me personally is 2-parent households. Is because I'm a diehard St. Paul to the end, but I kind of not having my dealing with my sons the way I had to is what's really has my daughter where she's at right now, with her being the last one. But me and my son's mothers didn't see eye to eye on schools. If I could have had it any kind of way, I mean, y'all know I had that group with Taylor Knighton and Keenan, all those Pierre who went to Johnson, no offense, but all them would have went to Central with me. Yeah. But for whatever reason, Central decided when my group was about to be freshmen that they didn't want me to coach there no more. So that was my reason for going to Tartan.
Say that again?
And coaching. Yeah.
No, back up to what you...
When my group, Lil Marlon and Marcus Taylor Knighton and Dalen and Peanut and all them went in, were getting ready to go into 9th grade, I got pulled into the hallway and was told that they didn't want me to come back and coach at Central the next year.
I never heard that.
Yes. So that was the reason. So my next thing was, what do I do next for my son? Well, my old high school coach was coaching at Hill Murray. Saint Agnes is my old high school coach was the head coach at Hill Murray. Yeah. So I sent my son to Hill Murray for his freshman year. He did well there. I wish he would have stayed there. He ended up playing with Marshawn. That ended up transferring from Tartan. Well, it didn't work out there with the private school, the payments, all that stuff. So he ended up at Roseville, which is a suburban school right next to St. Paul. He hated it there. I didn't like it there. I would get into it with his coaches over just simple stuff. Like, I'm not saying he's going to the league or none of that, but like you said, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these kids been playing out here in Roseville since 3rd grade. So you can't just come and get in the mix of it. No, you're not playing. So then he ended up at Tartan, same thing. Right. So I think kids should stay home, moral of the story. Yeah. Because my thing is, the stuff that they pull, we get on Coach Howell about, and I've seen worse. When you play a kid his whole senior year and then you get the sections and he's not in your rotation, all of a sudden, like you said, no explanation, no nothing. He waiting, thinking, okay, I usually go in about this time. So that's why I always say kids need to stay home, because they only want our kids to come out there so we're not competitive in the city. They hate to see us all together. You see what happened when all the girls stayed together? Yeah. Then they come up with a transfer rule. Yeah. So and that goes for all these suburb coaches. They only want our kids to come out there so they don't have to play against all of them.
Imagine that.
And our kids,
I believe that wholeheartedly.
And the parents don't see that. That he won. You got kids sitting on the bench that would have started at Central and been 15, 20-point scorers. They getting spot minutes in the suburb schools.
And the 2020 clubs.
And it's sad to see because they don't have good means for our kids. I'm just keeping it real.
They're not bred for our kids.
They'll take the one. They'll always take the one kid. Like, you say, okay, out of that group, I'm going to take him. But them other 4 to go out there with him, you'll sit the bench.
Yeah, I'm going to show you it's possible.
You're going to be playing JV as a senior. That type stuff.
But to your point, you talking about like having both parents in a household. And like I watched your son go through his challenges.
Yeah.
But he still ended up playing college basketball.
Mm-hmm. Went further than any of the group that he played with.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize he went to Palm Beach, JUCO. They were number 1 in the nation. He played there for 2 years and then went to Payne College in Augusta. Them dudes that he played with his senior year didn't have a career like that. Mm-mm. And he didn't even get to play like he should his senior year at Tartan.
And I remember, but I think my point to bringing that up is a lot of kids don't have the dad support, just a level-headed
gotta
mom.
be there.
I don't know their mom's situation, but just the approach to we're going to just keep fighting through. We're going to keep pushing through it because a lot of kids get washed out.
And just quit.
They come through a couple little challenges of adversity and like, you know what? Like, I'm good. And to your point, like, yeah, we lose a lot of good talent that way because they just stop playing. Like, you know what? I don't even want to go through that no more.
Yeah.
But if they continue to push through it, it's just going to build character, learning how to deal with adversity. Mm-hmm. And then when you see a challenge, like, yeah, all right, well, what's up? Like, all right, head down, I'm going through it.
Yeah.
And now look at where he's at now because he's learned how to go after what he wants, regardless of who's in front of you, man. I've been proud to watch him. I'm proud to watch you have him. And I know as a dad, man, like that got to feel special, man, to see where your son's at, knowing that people wasn't seeing his light. They was trying to dim his light, and he kept, moving the stuff out of his way, trying to show his light. Now he's out here shining, man. So that's it's a blessing.
It's what we need 2-parent households.
Yeah,
that's a big thing that these athletes, especially in our community, is missing. Is because people can take advantage of single parents. That's where the advantage comes in because these kids get fed false information because they have nobody to say, nah, we're not doing that. Yeah. Nah. But you can tell whoever told you that no, we got to come.
Have him come tell me that.
Yeah.
I think you said that wrong. Have him come tell me. Right. Have him come tell me that. Yeah. Well, you was co-parenting too, though, wasn't you?
Yes. And that's what I said. Their moms allowed me to make those decisions because they knew I knew more about that.
They knew that was your lane. And that's the only reason I brought that up because I hear you saying 2-parent households. Yeah. But it's 2 active parents.
2 active parents.
2 active.
It don't
parents.
have to be in the same house.
Yeah,
2 active parents.
You gotta let dad play dad.
And you gotta let mom do things that they do well.
100%. But I think sometimes and especially in the basketball world, we'll see a lot of single parent households where we have to deal with mainly the mom.
Yeah.
The dad don't really come around. If there is any interaction or communication, it's typically through the mom.
Okay.
I noticed that even with coaching. As a head coach in high school, I've never talked to more moms. Like, why ain't your dad coming to talk to me? I used to ask the players, like, why is the moms you have a father. I see your dad, your pops in the stands. I'd rather talk to him. And why is your mom coming to talk? Let me talk to your dad. Well, we can get to the core of this more if I could talk to your pops.
Yeah.
I think just dealing with my son and my wife, like they're the nurturing side. They're gonna find. They're on the advocating side. Yeah. They want to come advocate. Dads are gonna be more of the accountability piece. Like, hold up, you should have ran harder. You didn't have a good game. Mom's like, oh baby, that was a good game. Like, what?
It wasn't.
I had 5 points and 7 assists and 2 turnovers. What do you mean that was a good?
I tell people right now, that's my biggest fear as a dad. Okay, and you can take it how you want. My biggest fear is having to tell my daughter she had a good game, knowing she was out there so cheeks. Like, baby, you was all right. You did so good out there.
You ain't gonna do that.
You could word it a little different, but you could tell her that.
The truth is always enough,
I'm
dog.
gonna have to lie.
My way of doing it is and I get that. Yeah, it's straight cutthroat. But my words, I just adjusted a little different and say we got some things we need to work on.
We just got a little bit more work. Yeah.
We got some things we need to work on.
Yeah, you did good, but we just go work on.
We got to work on some things. Like right now.
Yeah, like you don't get to go to your friend's house.
We're gonna do some. We got about 30 minutes of work.
In fact, you and your friend coming over here.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I want to appreciate y'all for coming through. Like I said, two legends from the city, man. Like we couldn't be more thankful. And we talked about this off camera, but look, they deserve their own interviews. They both will get their own interviews. You know what I'm saying? Because it's legendary. You know, they was already. I see the reminiscing going on in y'all's head. Like I can answer so much and say so much. So, you know, we'll love to get these stories out. And it's definitely, like he said, he watched you win a state championship. I done heard all the stories, so I know the people love to hear, and I know certainly some I haven't heard. So
it was a movie.
We got to put that on. We got to put that on wax.
You talking about a city behind you?
Yeah. So you know, we appreciate Coach Malik and Coach Marlon coming through. You know what I'm saying, for this new thing that we're doing for Coach's Corner, man. I hope you guys appreciate it and enjoy some of the knowledge and game that they gave out. You know, I know you guys. You guys, anything else? Oh, it just went off on us.